Get your message to the thousands. Call the WCAB Sales Department today at 287-3356.
So far, about 28-year-old suspect Audrey Hale.
Investigators finding a detailed map of the school with entry points, even markings showing where the security cameras were located.
She entered the school through a side entrance and traversed her way from the first floor to the second floor, firing multiple shots.
The video also shows the shooter walking the halls, armed with 2 assault-style rifles and a handgun, 2 of which were obtained legally and locally. Authorities say the shooter had no prior criminal history.
Police arrived on the scene and immediately went inside, shooting and killing Hale, but not before she had shot and killed 6 people, including 3 9-year-old students. Cleanup efforts go on in Rolling Fork, Tennessee, where an EF4 tornado wiped out much of the town. Sherry McKinney is with the American Red Cross and is trying to help.
It appears almost like a construction site that has torn down buildings and they're rebuilding. Unfortunately, it was just days ago that this was a beautiful neighborhood, I'm sure. So it is very shocking.
More than 24 people were killed in the twister in Mississippi. The water being tested regularly in Philadelphia, but officials insist it's safe. ABC's Ariel Reshef is there.
The White House says that President Biden has been briefed on the situation here. More than 8,000 gallons of a white, milky latex polymer spilled into a waterway that feeds into the Delaware River late Friday evening. City officials believe that this entire situation will be resolved by Wednesday or Thursday, but they will continue to test the water through next week.
Things are quiet in Israel after weeks of protest over the prime minister's plans to overhaul the judiciary. Benjamin Netanyahu says he'll try again to push through the plan later. You're listening to ABC News.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today the beginning of your fresh start with the IRS. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief now for your free confidential consultation.
Call 800-783-8055. That's 800-783-8055. 800-783-8055.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Still hanging over Washington, the fact that the federal government bumped into the debt ceiling weeks ago. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has now sent a letter to the president urging him that they meet and talk about it. They last met 2 months ago. 6 people, including 5 children, all in the hospital in critical condition with carbon monoxide poisoning. A car apparently left running in the garage attached to the home in Fort Worth, Texas. One of the children called 911 after the mother got sick as well. An NFL owner is launching a new campaign to fight anti-Semitism.
A small sky blue square lapel pin is part of a $25 million campaign called Stand Up to Jewish Hate by New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft.
We just want to have people get the facts.
Like the Jewish population of the U.S., which includes Kraft, is 2.4%, but they're victims of 55% of hate crimes in the country.
Together, we will beat hate.
TV ads include a father talking to his son.
I saw what you've been posting. Hitler was right. I didn't teach you that.
Billionaires started the foundation to combat anti-Semitism. Chuck Severson, ABC News.
And some farmers in California are farming water. Don Cameron, one of several farmers taking advantage of this year's unusually wet weather by flooding some of his fields. He says giving up a few acres of tomatoes at his farm outside of Fresno is worth it in exchange for letting the water seep into the soil and replenish groundwater supplies. This is ABC News.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones.
Highs will reach the mid-60s and mid-70s for today. We are going to see some evening showers move in, but it's going to ramp up as we head into the overnight hours with gradual clearing. By tomorrow, we will see dry conditions, especially to start the day. Look for lows in the low to upper 40s with highs tomorrow in the lower 60s and a lot of sunshine. We do have those temperatures warming up into the 70s as we head into Thursday. I'm meteorologist Peter Sherwood in the Weather Center.
It's a terrific Tuesday here in the foothills, and it is right now 53 degrees under partly cloudy skies. Should turn out to be a beautiful day in the neighborhood. It's 9:05.
It's time now for My Great America with Jim and Butch, a conversation about positive things about this great country. And now here are Jim and Butch.
Well, it's good to have another day in My Great America with Jim and Butch. It's glad to have Butch back in the Blue Room.
I love being back in the Blue Room with you, Jim. I absolutely love it. People have asked me, what's up with the plant? You know, the plant is a survivor. I remember buying this, I think about a year ago, and it's growing, and the tendrils, that's the word, the tendrils are still here. Jim, you got that lavender shirt on, and this is a very monumental week.
It is indeed.
It is, because on Friday, at end of business, you will end this dispensation of your engagement with WCAB after 36 plus years. But the reality is, Jim, that the tidal pools of your influence in the county will continue. And I got to start out by doing something, okay? I was up there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I've spoken to the Amish up there. I've got Amish friends, and they have a gift for you. They have a gift, and it was actually motivated by my mother. Okay, I was up there helping my mom, Joyce. She's been dealing with physical issues. Her legs are a little bit better. She's been dealing with edema. She's got a lot of stuff going on. She's soon to be 91. She is full of verve. Look it up, V-E-R-V-E. She is full of verve. She loves Jesus. She loves My Great America. She loves Jim Bishop. You actually had the chance to talk to her.
I did. I really appreciate it. She's such a sweet lady.
She's sweet. Unless you're the son and you're on the wrong side of whatever she feels like God put in her heart. But anyway, so the Amish community up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, people that I know said, Jim Bishop is retiring. We understand that he's important to you. And so they made you something. It's a shoe fly pie. Now listen.
Shoe fly pie.
Those of you that don't know what that is, Tracy just asked me. I said, Google it. And it's basically, I don't want to be foolish, and I'm not being foolish. It's kind of like diabetes in a circle. But my mother took what they gave me, and she wrapped it up so diligently and said, I know you got to get through TSA, you got to get through security, all that stuff. So she wrapped it, my mother wrapped this up, and then, with a red Sharpie pen, with a star, she put shoe fly pie. Jim. Yeah. So I felt like I wasn't doing anything illegal, but I got it through security. And so you and Faye have that later today.
Shoe fly pie.
Shoe fly pie from Lancaster County, which has 36,283 Amish that are there. It's one of the pies that they're known for.
Okay, well, I appreciate it very much.
Do you like pies?
I do love pies. I've never had a shoe fly pie, though.
You haven't?
No.
Okay, well, this is the first of many. Now, listen, I'm going to ask folks to do this. Jim's last day is Friday. And if you've not written him a note, if you've not dropped a card, if you've not reached out and told him what he's meant to you through all these years, please do it this week. There's no passionate, like discouraging encouragement here. It's just all about helping honor people. And Scripture makes it very clear we're to honor leaders. Right. So if people wanted to drop a note, Jim, what's the address here?
Post office box is 511 Rutherfordton 28139. My email is jimbishop@nctv.com.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? Through all of Scripture, it talks about honoring those who've gone before us, those who have paved the way. And for 36 plus years, Jim Bishop has done that. And I'm not paid to say this. He's my friend. But for all of you that have ever wanted one opportunity to say thanks, this is the week to do it, because we've got another program, My Great America, on Thursday. But on Friday, it will be the end of his time here. You know, Jim, it's interesting because when I go through the county, you helped me become embraced in the county, by the way. When I didn't know what to say, when people would say, you're not from around here, I would say, I know Jim Bishop. And that helped me so much. But you know what? There are 4 questions that people have asked me that I'm going to ask you now, if that's okay. Because they know that you and I are friends. You're my older brother. So if I can ask you those questions, I'd like to.
Sure, I think.
Yeah. So one is, where were you born? Where did you grow up? How many siblings do you have? This is one question. How many siblings do you have? Talk about your family of origin.
Okay. Well, I was born actually at home in Cherokee Springs, South Carolina.
At home?
Yes, I was born at home, Cherokee Springs.
Not in a hospital?
No, that's correct.
Isn't that something? Who helped with the delivery?
I don't know. I don't know who it was. Mom had somebody, I guess. I don't know. I was the youngest of 4, 3 older than me. Only one left. Sister's left. She's the oldest. She's left. She's living in Gaffney. And I was born one day before her birthday. So we messed her birthday party up. She was going to have a birthday party on her birthday, and I was born on the 13th. Her birthday's on the 14th. So
of what month?
July.
Okay.
So she didn't get to have her birthday party because Mom was having a baby.
Okay.
But she said that was her birthday present.
It's okay. In God's economy, we don't note those things, but you came into the world and we're grateful.
Yes.
All right.
Lived there in Cherokee Springs. I don't know how long. We grew up in a little bit young boy in Mayo, South Carolina. Went to Mayo Elementary School for a period of time. My dad being a pastor, we moved around over the years.
What kind of, a denominationally affiliated pastor or
He was Southern Baptist pastor.
Okay.
Southern Baptist pastor.
So you grew up in the Southern Baptist kind of
I did.
tradition.
Yes,
okay.
I did.
All right, good.
Country style preaching. I actually grew up, I call myself growing up in Gaffney, South Carolina, because that's where I graduated from high school. We spent 7 years in Gaffney.
Okay.
Graduated from Gaffney High School.
Okay.
And while Dad was pastoring Northside Baptist Church, and went away to college after that, and never really went back home. In and out visiting, but I went from Gardner Webb to Georgetown College in Kentucky, finished my degree out there. That's when I came back here to. Actually got in the radio after that down in South Carolina, Greer, South Carolina for a while.
In Greer, okay.
And then moved over to Spartanburg, to a station there in Spartanburg, which was owned by, at that time, Spartanburg Herald Journal. While I was working there at the radio station, I got a call from Mr. Forrest Hunt, who was the superintendent of schools here in the county, Rutherford County.
In Rutherford County, yeah.
He said he needed some men teachers, and knew I just graduated. He wondered if I'd be interested in teaching. And I said, well, I don't know. Let's talk about it. So he hired me as a teacher. I taught at Tri-Community, actually it's Caroline Elementary at Proctor School. We split shifts there. That was the year before integration. That was the last year of segregation.
Oh, okay.
So I went to a Proctor School, which was an all African-American school, and half a day there and half a day at Caroline, which was an all-white school.
Yes.
Next year we consolidated to Tri-Community there at Henrietta.
That must have been in the 70s.
It was. And so I taught 7th grade there for a year. That's when I got my letter from President Nixon. He said, we need you, young man, in the military.
That was the draft.
That was the draft. When the draft was in fact, that was the height of the Vietnam conflict, of course, and everybody was going into war. And so I was going to be drafted. I was getting up in age. I'd already been through college and taught a couple of years. And Mr. Hunt, who was short of men teachers, he didn't have very many men because all the men were in service, basically. So so he wanted me to stay on. So he went to the draft board and said, "Can you defer him a little bit? So we need men teachers, and I can't afford to lose any." And the draft board lady said, "We deferred him 4 years through college. We deferred him 2 years as a teacher. If we defer him one more year, he'll be too old to be drafted. So we're going to get him this year." So I decided.
They got you.
They got me. So I decided to join the Air Force instead of going into the Army, which was a smart decision on my part. So I spent 4 years in the Air Force, came back here to Rutherford County, and got into radio. And
Now up in Elmendorf, what did you do?
Elmendorf Air Force Base.
In Alaska.
That was considered an overseas assignment for us. It was a beautiful setting. Alaska's beautiful. That part of the section was beautiful. It wasn't many years after the big earthquake that tore up downtown Anchorage. A lot of the remains were still there. So Faye was able to join me after a period of time. My son was born in at Robbins Air Force Base in Georgia, where I was stationed at Warren Robins. He was born there, and she brought him up to Alaska. And my daughter was born in Alaska. She's the Eskimo of the family, so she was born there. And I was assigned. My job was assigned to the chaplain's office. I was a chaplain's assistant.
Okay.
So I kept the chaplain straight, take care of them if they needed, and dressed up the worship services in the mornings.
Yes.
I worked with the Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish chaplain.
Isn't that something?
Large base.
That helped. Excuse me.
Yeah.
That helped you when you came here and had to deal with people from Boston, Golden Valley, and Ellenboro, right?
It did. Yeah. Got to see all walks of life.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But it was a great assignment. I loved it, and could have probably stayed there. I loved Alaska. A lot of folks either love or hate Elmendorf and Alaska Park. I could probably stay had several job opportunities when I was getting out. But Faye didn't like it as much as I did, and she had a grandmother who was getting up in age. And
okay.
Grandmother helped raise her, so she wanted to come home, so we did. And it was a good decision to come home, and so that's where we landed. Ended right here in Rutherford County, in radio and various other things. I left radio, went into Dale Carnegie training industry around Western North Carolina.
Now, for people, Jim, that don't know Dale Carnegie, he obviously changed the whole landscape when it comes to sharing what's in your heart, doing good meetings.
His first book that he became very popular with was How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was his first book. He built training around that. He worked a lot with the YMCA up in New York City, and developed some programming that helped people build leadership skills, build confidence, help them be able to communicate before an audience or be able to communicate one-on-one with their employees.
Right.
And so it swept the nation. A lot of folks were using a lot of major corporations. Darren Milligan was a big believer in the Dale Carnegie training. He said about everybody, a lot of the major corporations around the North and South became affiliated with Carnegie through their training. So I spent several years in Western North Carolina training people with leadership skills and being able to build self-confidence. And right about that same time was when Jim Martin was running for governor.
Okay. And for people that don't know who Jim Martin is, tell us about him real quick.
Jim Martin, he was a congressman, first of all. He lived over in the Lake Norman area and was a great guy, good Christian man. He was a congressman for a number of years and ran for governor. And I had just bought WCAB August of the year he was elected in November.
That was what year?
70, I've got those notes.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's 70-something.
I'm speaking later to the senior senator, and I'll be talking about that. I've got those dates in my mind. But he called in November after he was elected. I just bought a WCB. He said, "Want me to come to work for him?" And I said, "Doing what?" He said, "We'll have an office in Asheville, the Western Office of the Governor, which is in Asheville at that time."
Right. And excuse me, but constituent services and being on the ground is really important for political figures, isn't it?
It really was, and people up in the western part of the state, many of them in the western counties, they're closer to 5 other state capitals than they are their own in Raleigh. So Governor Martin didn't set the office up; it was set up prior to him. But it gave the folks in the West a closer touch with their governor. So I fondly referred to it as he sent me there to speak on his behalf when he couldn't be there, and to represent the people in the West to the governor when they couldn't go to him.
It's almost like being a state ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and most people don't realize how big North Carolina is.
Oh, it is very big geographically.
They do not realize geographically it's big. They don't realize that Rutherford County is a big county.
It is.
Right. So you were appointed by him to be his voice, his oracle, his ambassador in the Western region.
Which was, I told him when he called, I said, I just bought a radio station, and my wife is getting ready to join me in Dale Carnegie training. I had not intended on being a hands-on operator. I was just going to retire to it. And he said, well, think about it. So I said, well, I'll pray about it and talk to the family. So I did. And so on inauguration day, when the governor was being inaugurated, I went down. That's when I told him I'd do it. So the family was up for it. They were good with it. And Faye said she could go ahead into the Carnegie business without me. So she jumped in, left the bank and jumped in. And so I worked with the governor 7 years. Driving
Jim,
back,
that's a long time.
Driving back and forth to Raleigh and driving back and forth to Asheville, back in all over western North Carolina. It was I could not have done that with less service for any other governor, I don't think, because he was such a gentleman, such a Christian man, godly man. I rode with him. I've said this story many times when people talk about politicians. I'd ridden with him many times in the back of a highway patrol car going to various locations. I never once ever heard him use profanity. I never seen him really angry. I saw him a little upset over certain things, but I never saw him get out of hand. Never heard him talk rude to the troopers, highway patrol. It was his security. He was just a principled guy. And so I enjoyed it.
Is he still with us? Or
he
no?
is. He still lives around the Lake Norman area.
Okay.
And he's a scientist. He was a chemist, taught chemistry at Davidson before he went into Congress.
Isn't that something?
So he's a very smart man. I think he's doing some research now for the hospital over that way, last I heard from him. Last time I saw him, he was in good health. I had spent about 3 or 4 years since I saw him last.
Would he be in his...
He would probably be in his 80s.
80s,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. He's still, as far as I know, he's still in good health.
Right. And God keeps wanting us to go deeper with his assignment in our life, no matter our age, right?
Yeah, and I don't think he wants us to give up. Although
He doesn't.
The chronological age shows up on us, I don't think he wants to sit down and do nothing.
Never.
Pushing
No. You look through Scripture, and Scripture is very clear. The gifts and the callings are without repentance. That word is translated a little differently. The gifts and the callings are without retraction. Mm-hmm. So when God gives gifts and callings, Jim, he expects us to keep pressing forward until the day of his coming. Now, I've had a couple of other questions from people in the county. All right, so may I ask them?
Sure.
Okay, so they want to know how many siblings do you have?
I have one living. We had 4 of us altogether.
There were 4, and you're the youngest.
2 brothers and a sister and me. I'm the youngest.
You're the young. Yeah. Okay, now there are all these stereotypes about youngest. Is that you?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so either. Now the other thing is you go to Florence Baptist Church.
Florence Baptist Church. Been a member there about 10 years.
Okay. All right. Where were you before?
My last church before that was Sandy Mush Baptist Church.
Okay.
I was a minister in music for a number of churches over the years. Led choir and directed the worship service. And Sandy Mush was where I was last. And things sort of fell apart there over various reasons.
Sure.
And so it was time for me to leave there. I won't tell the whole story, but I was the last deacon standing, so to speak, because by then everybody had left. And
okay.
I was in the shower one day, and the Lord just spoke to me and said, "It's time for you to leave too."
You were in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I went and told Faye. I said, "It's time."
Yeah. Right. And you know what, Jim? Whether it's the shower, or like for me in July of 2010, when I was on a ventilator dying, God will find us in those moments and tell us when it's time to move on. Where did the name Sandy Mush come from? Forgive me. I have always wanted to ask somebody that would be honest and tell me.
Well, there's 2 stories. I'm not sure which is correct. It's back early in the Revolutionary War days when it was real windy and the guys were camped out, and they had to eat their mush, and we're blowing sand into the mush. So supposedly that was
okay. That's one story.
Yeah, and let's see, what was the other one? Other one, pretty much the same thing, I think. I think
Yeah.
both had to do with sand being in the mush and having to eat that sand. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but
You know, it's interesting. I was telling a friend of mine that works with the Southern Baptists at the North American Mission Board. Yeah, the fact that I even know what the North American Mission Board is, Jim, lets you know that I'm in Alpharetta. Lets you know that I've experienced the Baptist experience. But we were talking one time about the names of churches, right? And there was a Southern Baptist church one time I saw a sign. I forget where it was. It was in the Midwest somewhere. And it was Dark Hollow Baptist Church. And I thought, I don't want to be the marketing guy that knocks on the door and says, you ought to change your name, but you ought to change your name.
Dark Hollow.
Dark Hollow Baptist Church. That's not very inviting.
Well, you know, we have a Shingle Hollow
Yes.
community, but the church is called Piney Knob.
Piney Knob.
Piney
right,
Knob
right.
Baptist.
Yeah, the names of churches are interesting. You know, speaking of churches, Jim, you know, our time, whenever you and I talk, by the way, we could talk for hours. And there might be 11 people that will listen the whole time. I don't know. But, you know, speaking of churches, you made a bold and heroic choice to let my church, Word of Faith Fellowship, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8:30 to 9 o'clock, put on testimonies, not preaching, but testimonies from people at our congregation. It was one of the boldest, strongest, most integrity-driven decisions I've ever seen in my 5.5 years here. You're one of the few people that's heard all of, or most, of those testimonies. What would you say?
Well, the idea, when they were first being publicly ridiculed with the Inside Edition story and all the cameras were here, and I was there at the press conference, and in my heart, I just felt like the national media was piling on. And coming from a background of churches and different denominations, I just felt like, you know, every church has a right to worship the way they want to worship. So I just couldn't fall into that, and I kept thinking over the years after that died down a little bit, and I even suggested one time to the pastor that, you know, you folks ought to come on and tell your side of the story. All we're getting is the other side of the story. And then one day, I guess the Lord revealed to them they should do that. So the pastor came over and we talked about it, and I said, I would love for you to come on and share your side of the story. Let the folks give their testimony as to why they're here and how they got here, and what the Lord's done in their lives, because it could help somebody else and open up some doors of revelation as to, you know, these folks over there don't have horns on their head. You know, don't have cult series going on, and so I've been ridiculed many times because I'd opened that door, but that's okay. I'm a big boy. I can handle it.
You know, Jim, it's one of many reasons, and of course that's my church, and I don't have horns. I just have the gentle, humble heart, I hope, of a man who's wanting to be more like Jesus, and it's a congregation of faith. But the reality is, there aren't a lot of people that would have made that bold move, and you did. And I'm speaking on behalf of many people whose lives are changing. We just want to help the county know that whatever your circumstance is, you can change, and we're all changing, you know. Sometimes we talked about this. Chuck Swindoll's book, 3 Steps Forward, 2 Steps Back. It's +1. What's the trajectory of a person's life? And you have influenced so many people in the county. And on Thursday, okay, I may weep a little bit.
I've been weeping all week so far.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah, you know what? When a man, my mother told me this one time. She said when a man weeps, it reflects his strength. Yeah. So Joyce Malpe, who's listening right now, I'm with Jim Bishop. He's got a lavender shirt on. He looks good. And you know, Jim, what makes America great at the end of it are simple people acknowledging God, letting Him work in their lives, taking the tools that have been given, and applying that to their community. You've done that miraculously for 36 plus years. God bless America.
God bless America.
Thank you for joining us for My Great America with Jim and Butch. Join us each Tuesday and Thursday morning at 9:05 for this enlightening program on 100.9 FM and 590 AM. It's My Great America with Jim and Butch.